Thank you, Charles. Now, Vanessa, let me welcome you to the programme. Bring us up to date with what's going on in the Middle East.
Well, interesting as we're discussing budget, and apparently, according to the Telegraph that picked up the story that I mentioned last week about CIA, British mercenaries potentially policing gated communities, which is effectively concentration camps within a concentration camp in Gaza. I wonder how, if they are to be used, how they are also going to be funded. So this is from the Telegraph. Former British Special Forces soldiers could soon be dispatched to help build Hamas-free gated communities in Gaza. We've been covering this story pretty much since October last year because there have been intermittent reports on the subject. The proposal involves Israel engaging private military contractors to create safe zones for the delivery of aid and assist with reconstruction of the war-torn enclave. No comment on the war-torn. According to several Israeli news outlets, Mordecai Moti Kahana, an Israeli-American businessman who runs a global delivery company, is poised to win a $200 million contract. If the deal is signed, Kahana says GDC intends to divide the strip into a series of Hamas-free bubbles or gated communities for Palestinians, which of course means extra surveillance, smart city type environments. Movements between the bubbles would be controlled by GDC and a UK private security contractor with access to former British Special Forces, he adds, and he goes on to say, these are British Special Forces. They know what they're doing. They are people who have fought terrorism all their lives. If something happens, we will convey the message to the residents of Gaza, you don't want to mess with us. They will understand that a new sheriff has arrived in the city. He goes on, or rather the article goes on in the Telegraph, which of course has direct connections to MI6, or certainly is always channeling their messaging. Kahana, who started his career in New York as a taxi driver, said he would not name the British security firm. However, GDC is known to have worked previously with Constellas, the US company that took control of Blackwater, the mercenary company that operated in Iraq and was responsible for a civilian massacre in Iraq. Constellas is listed as an official partner on GDC's website. Constellas have worked with GDC in Ukraine. Constellas also owns the Olive Group, one of Britain's biggest military-grade private security firms. GDC and its subcontractor have had extensive discussions with the Israeli government, including the Ministry of Defense, the Israeli Defense Forces, and the Prime Minister's office on the modalities for this initiative, but also with the US State Department that, funnily enough, the Telegraph doesn't mention. And then looks like this here, I want to really demonstrate to what degree legacy media, and particularly British media, obfuscates information from the public. So when you go to GDC, who are their partners? AJC, which is the American Jewish Committee, Constellas, IAC, the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, and then, of course, the Jewish Agency for Israel. All of these are effectively Zionist lobby front companies. The team, Moti Kahana, founder and CEO, as I mentioned, from Chicago, but has obviously dual nationality. Then let's have a look at the GDC website, what they claim to have done in Syria, saving historic artifacts in Damascus. Now, this is interesting because actually the terrorist factions, including, of course, Al-Qaeda under its various nomenclatures, occupied Jobal, which was originally a Jewish area in Damascus, and stole the artifacts, which then oddly ended up in Israel. Rescuing the last Jews of Aleppo, Syria, kind of no comment on that. And also he did effectively traffic children from Syria to Israel for what he termed as education inside Israel. Also involved in Ukraine, so Israeli rescue expert, sounds very akin to the white helmet kind of propaganda here, builds vital Ukraine supplies bridge. So what does this actually mean? It means they set up base in Romania, from where actually many of the intelligence operations that are NATO linked are being run from in order to infiltrate Ukraine. Israeli rescue contractor renowned for his operations in saving refugees, aka children, in Syria and Afghanistan, has launched a humanitarian bridge service. So he claims that he's bringing essential humanitarian supplies into Ukraine from Romania. That needs further investigation, in my opinion. And then I want to have a quick look at the people that are actually working at GDC. So this is the counter-terrorism security advisor, Oded Ilam. Served in the Mossad for over 24 years, beginning as a field operational agent working undercover across the globe. He went on to serve for 6 years as the director of Mossad's counterterrorism center, eventually becoming deputy director of all Mossad operations. Following his retirement from Mossad, Oded founded a consulting and management company in the field of homeland security, advising governments and institutions worldwide. He's a writer for Israel's most read newspaper and a commentator, etc., etc. So we have already a fairly high-level Mossad and probably 8200 player here. Then we go to Doron Avital, board member. He has a celebrated military career from the time he commanded leading paratroopers company in the early 80s to the planning and commanding of numerous complex special operations in the Israeli elite special forces unit, Sayeret Maktal, aka the unit. During his service, Avital received numerous IDF military and special operations awards. He's now a member of the Knesset. Then board member Yossi Kubra-Vasa. He's an Israeli intelligence and security expert, head of the research division in the Israel Defense Force Military Intelligence Division, and Director General of the Israel Ministry of Strategic Affairs, currently senior project manager at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, specializing in the security dimensions of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And then finally, David Sur had a 31-year career in the IDF. His final position in the military was Chief Intelligence Officer, the number 2 person in the Military Intelligence Directorate, often referred to as Amman, which is connected to 8200, where he served under Moshe Yalon. From 95 until 98, he was commander of the Liaison Unit for Foreign Forces and was responsible for IDF relations with Jordanian and Egyptian armed forces. Interesting collection of board members and advisors. Then we have active advisor Justin Sapp. So here on the website, they don't give very much away. He's a retired Green Beret colonel with nearly 30 years of active duty experience where he served at various echelons within the military and interagency. But then let's have a look at Justin Sapp on another website. He was a Special Forces captain detailed to the CIA shortly after the 9/11 attacks. He infiltrated northern Afghanistan with CIA's Team Alpha and was the first soldier to go behind Taliban lines in 2001. And so it goes on. He's made numerous deployments to Afghanistan and the Middle East, where he served at various levels of command and staff within Special Forces. Colonel Sapp retired from the US Army in 2024 after nearly 30 years of active duty service. His final role was as the military chief of staff at the US mission to the United Nations. He is now a consultant at Constellas. So we come kind of full circle back to the Constellas connection. And then, Mike, finally, I will be forever grateful for you creating this infographic because it shows so clearly. People that have followed our work at UK Column, particularly on Syria, will know about the White Helmets established by the UK Foreign Office, MI6, CIA, funded by multiple members of the regime change cartel that effectively waged a proxy terrorist war against the Syrian government and people since 2011. And the White Helmets were founded not in Syria, but in Turkey in 2013 by James Lemessurier, who you will see in the photo in the center, former British military intelligence, who, as part of his career, worked for the Olive Group, which we heard is a private military contractor, British, that were then merged into Constellas, but Constellas also contains within it Academy, which was formerly Blackwater. So we keep seeing this connection of these kind of shadowy security service operations that are infiltrating countries to be targeted for regime change or destabilization or economic hybrid war projects. So interesting times. But yes, where's the money coming from for yet another British-led military project?
Well, it's going to come from the latest grab from this British regime on the British taxpayer. And we've got to be much more active about asking questions about where that money's going, in my opinion. And maybe we need to be following Chris Coverdale's lead and, stopping funding this regime.
And the other thing, Mike, just one
Vanessa.
other thing, Mike, of course, it's now doubly difficult to actually track if the UK Foreign Office is funding these organisations, because why? They've removed their funding spreadsheets since you investigated them or since you made the website to look into the figures.
Yes, indeed. So they haven't published, they normally publish sort of on a quarterly basis, all Foreign Commonwealth Development Office spending over £25,000 in spreadsheet form. So we decided we would take those spreadsheets and make that data a bit more accessible for people by creating a website. If you want to go and have a look at that, have a look at fcdospending.ukcolumn.org, and you'll see that we don't have any data since, I think, September 2021. And my efforts to obtain this information through Freedom of Information have been rebuffed, shall we say, and that is another of the current Information Commissioner investigations that's going on. So the Information Commissioner is now directly involved in trying to obtain this data for us. But pretty much since the beginning of the Ukraine war, that information is no longer publicly available. But we'll keep you posted on it. But sticking with Israel for a second, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Vanessa, let's just mention the announcement a couple of days ago from South Africa that they've delivered evidence of Israel genocide to the International Court of Justice. So this says the South Africa has filed its memorial to the International Court of Justice today, 28th of October 2024, in its case on the application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip. In accordance with the rules of the court, the memorial may not be made public. This filing of this memorial takes place at a time when Israel is intensifying the killing of civilians in Gaza and now seems intent to follow a similar path of destruction in Lebanon. And the timing of this is very interesting because we have had a comment in the House of Commons from the lovely David Lammy on the question of whether the term genocide should be applied in the case of Israel.
Will the Foreign Secretary take this opportunity to say that there is not a genocide occurring in the Middle East?
Foreign Secretary.
That's their objective.
These are quite properly legal terms that must be determined by international courts. But I do agree with the Honourable Gentleman. Those terms were largely used when millions of people lost their lives in crises like Rwanda, the Second World War and the Holocaust. And the way that they are used now undermines the seriousness of that term.
Now, I personally find that comment really pretty sick, Vanessa, but I wanted to get your thoughts.
It's absolutely abhorrent that this man is dismissing the hundreds of thousands that have been massacred, and now that massacre is continuing in Lebanon as not being a genocide. When the ICJ has effectively ruled that it's a plausible genocide. It's extraordinary. I just find him repellent, like really repugnant, repellent, every word that I can possibly think of. He's vile.
Yes, Charles?
Well, I applaud his consistency. He has absolutely no idea what he's talking about.
Well, indeed, absolutely. He is consistently, many people would perhaps consider him consistently an idiot, but we'll talk about this some more in extra, I have no doubt. So, Charles, now Vanessa, let's welcome you back and bring us up to date with, does Zionism have a dilemma?
I'm not absolutely sure, but there are very mixed messages coming out from various people within the ruling elite of the so-called State of Israel. Israel is expanding its aggression. It is expanding its slaughter of civilians into Lebanon. Thousands of people today had to evacuate Baalbek and the Bekaa regions because they're under threat of carpet bombing, as they have been doing across the south, but across Lebanon, basically, not only in the south. So first of all, this is Yoav Gallant, the current slightly under siege defense minister, commenting particularly on the military operations in Gaza.
נידרש לפשרות כואבות, כי לא כל מטרה ניתן להשיג רק בפעולה צבאית. הכוח אינו תכלית הכל. בבואנו לממש את חובתנו המוסרית והערכית, להשיב את החטופים לביתם, נידרש לפשרות כואבות.
So basically admitting that there are far more casualties than are being reported, which is something we've known for a long time. But then also the opposition representative, Yair Lapid, says something very similar.
היה 7 באוקטובר, אנשים מתו, אנשים במנהרות בעזה, 13 לוחמים נהרגו אתמול ועוד 13 יהרגו מחר, אם הממשלה הזאת לא תעשה משהו. אי אפשר להעמיד פנים שזה לא קרה. אי אפשר להעמיד פנים שעכשיו אפשר להתייחס לזה כאילו כמו שהיה 11,000 פצועים, 890 הרוגים. אתה רוצה להגיד לי שהכל נראה אותו דבר? הצבא חולק עליו, כן. הצבא לא חולק על שום דבר, זה הנתון, זה הפצועים, זה ההרוגים. יש גבול לכמה אנחנו נתייחס לאמיתות אלטרנטיביות, אלה העובדות. אנשים, תלך, אם יש לך ספקות בנתון הזה, סע לתל השומר, סע לאיכילוב, סע לרמב"ם, לך למחלקות השיקום.
So the interviewer, they're getting a little bit disturbed because, of course, they are basically instructed as to what casualty figures they can give out. But then we have Netanyahu doubling down, promises to bring home all the hostages and to achieve the war aims he laid out at the beginning of the war. Total victory is an orderly and consistent work plan that we will fulfill step by step. Israel, he says, is the one obstacle keeping Iran from controlling the Middle East and threatening the rest of the world. The fanatical axis of evil led by Iran threatens to destroy our country and trap other countries in its net and to threaten the West, first of all. Iran is working for a stockpile of nuclear bombs, even though Israel has a secret stockpile of nuclear bombs, and will be able to threaten the entire world wherever it wants. According to Iran's thinking, he argues, if Israel falls, the entire Middle East will fall into its hands, but we will not fall. We will win, and the whole world will be a better place. Well, he's originally from Poland, but I'm sure that's a minor detail. Gideon Sa'ar, who's the Netanyahu's preferred replacement for Yoav Gallant, because he's far more expansionist-minded, is now sending out threatening messages to Syria. The message that Israel should convey to the Assad regime in Syria: Israel must make it clear to Assad that if Syria continues to be a path to supplying Iran's military to Hezbollah and allowing aggression from its territory, it puts its regime in jeopardy. His full speech at the Middle East Right Conference, initiated by Knesset member, and I've done a better translation of some of the things that were said, and this is taken from a report at Al Akhbar. Gideon Sa'ar, head of the National Right Party, who recently joined Benjamin Netanyahu's government and is considered a candidate for the Ministry of Defense, stated that Israel must make it clear to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad that if Syria continues to serve as a corridor for Iranian arms to Hezbollah and allows aggression from its territory, his regime will be at risk. Speaking at what Israel named the Right Middle East Conference, or it's actually the New Middle East Conference, Sa'ar emphasized Israel should place Assad's regime in a precarious position and under no circumstances allow Syria to facilitate arms supply routes. And then it goes on with the threat, reaffirming the stance Saar stressed that Tel Aviv will not tolerate Hezbollah's rearming through Syria or permit a new front to open against it from Syrian territory. He warned that Assad should fully understand that if he threatens Israel's security through these actions, he endangers his own regime. Reminding the audience of past missed opportunities, the right-wing minister remarked, Israel lost the chance to remove Assad during Syria's civil war. That's a fairly big admission there. An opportunity Iran and Hezbollah seized. Now Assad must make a critical choice. Saar concluded by asserting that detaching Assad from the Iranian axis would have profound implications for Israel's security. So Israel there, or Saar, basically admitting Israel's role in the regime change war and the funding of al-Qaeda and ISIS and the other terrorist groups and the arming of them. But this is interesting. It's a really bad translation from the Hebrew article. We have a history of, or Israel has a history of cooperation with the Kurds, which is not a place for privatization. There are strong people with a tradition of proximity to Israel. Israel's cooperation with the Kurds today is limited, in my opinion. We have an interest in expanding in security and political aspects. Israel can help the Kurds, they already are, in Syria and Iraq. And what's more, he basically then talks about the fact that they can potentially influence the Kurds in Iran to turn against Iran itself. So kind of extraordinary admissions there. They're no longer hiding their role in destabilizing the region and running interference for the United States.
And we should also remind everybody, of course, Vanessa, that they were also providing medical support for al-Qaeda and ISIS as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Okay, thank you for that. Charles.